Today we talk about my high school career and what type of player I was.
Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on everybody? How we doing? Answering your questions today. I get this question a ton. It's what type of player was I in high school? Was I the greatest player of all time? No. Was I horrible and I just somehow got drafted one day and eventually made my way up through the minor leagues into the major leagues? No, not really either. So we're going to talk about my career. I'll give you some of my stats. We're going to walk you through it so you guys have an idea kind of how I progressed throughout my baseball career. So as a high school player, let's start with this. I was always a pretty good player. If you watch me going into high school, if you saw me, no one would say like, oh man, that guy right there is like the next amazing player. That dude's just like a stud and he's going to be the greatest player of all time and play in the major leagues one day. That was not me. I was a good, solid player. I was a pretty good athlete. I could run pretty good, but I was somewhat skinny. I was kind of like, I don't know if you can call me tall. I mean, right now I'm probably just under 6'1", but I was a pretty skinny player. Wasn't a physical player. Didn't hit for a lot of power. My best tools when I was getting into high school was putting the bat on the ball. That's kind of always been my best tool throughout my life. So I didn't swing and miss very much at all. Like pretty much my whole life when I swung and missed, anytime I swung and missed when I was younger, I'd step out and be like, what the hell just happened? That was my best tool, okay? So I didn't strike out a lot, but I was a super patient hitter also. So I would take a lot of pitches, get deep in the count, but then I'd be able to put the bat on the ball or I would walk. So let's talk as I kind of get into high school. My freshman year, I made the JV team, and then I ended up getting called up to varsity towards the end of the season. Our high school team my freshman year was the number one team in the state. We had just won the state championship the year before, and then I got called up towards the end of the year. I was an infielder, but ended up getting put in the outfield in the state tournament. We ended up winning the state tournament again. So we went back-to-back state tournaments or state champions. So we had really good teams all of my years of high school, but especially those when I was in 8th grade and then when I became a freshman in high school. So when I was playing the outfield, I also got DH for, to give you a little idea. So again, I was a pretty good hitter, but at that point, it wasn't like I stepped on the field and they were like, we got to get this guy into the lineup. I was a JV player that played varsity and got DH for my freshman year. Sophomore year, started my first career game in left field, maybe 1 or 2 games, and then they moved me into the infield, okay? So sophomore year, I made varsity, started in the outfield and then moved to the infield, ended up hitting the top of the order pretty much my sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. Again, I was really good at getting on base, really good at putting the bat on the ball, and I was a good athlete, so I could run fast, could steal a lot of bases, and all that stuff. Had a pretty strong arm, so a lot of people say like, oh, what was your, how hard did you throw in high school? What was your exit speed and all this stuff? When I was younger, I have no idea. We never did exit speed. Exit speed wasn't a thing. Even when I was in pro ball, we never did exit speed. That's kind of been like a newer thing now. As far as throwing velocity, I always had a pretty good arm. The only time I really ever got on a gun was my senior year. I don't think even in my junior year I really got on a gun. My senior year I got put on the gun. So again, I was kind of like a toolsy player. So I could throw hard. I think senior year as a pitcher, I was our closer. I know that they had scouts at the first couple games scouting me as a position player, but then I'd come in the pitch, and when I pitched, they gunned me for some reason. And I was like 87 to 89. And I topped out at 91 a couple times my senior year. The only reason I know is because I think my dad was stalking the scouts and was standing back there with the gun. So I had a strong arm. Like I said, I've always had a lot of tools, so that's how hard I threw. My 60 time was always 6'6", pretty much on the nose. The best time I know that I ran was my senior year. I went down for a workout with the Rays. I ran a 6'5'8", so I could always run pretty fast. I never had power, though. I never had any power. Here's an interesting fact. I never hit a high school home run in batting practice or in a game. And so let me give you a couple things. my senior in high school, we're a wood bat league, or the whole state of Massachusetts was wood bat my senior in high school. So we all used wood bats, so I didn't use a metal bat. But my junior year, I did use a metal bat, and I still didn't hit any home runs, and I didn't hit home runs in batting practice the whole entire season. I was really a line drive hitter. If you looked at my swing, back then I knew nothing really about swings, but if you look back at my swing, I was really wide stance, barely took a stride, and just kind of hit the ball on the ground and on a line, which worked great at that level at high school, especially because I was fast. That's one of the reasons I hit for such a high average. So again, I don't know all my stats. I know my junior year, I think I hit 629, and my senior year, I hit lower because we went to wood bats. I hit probably 550 or so my senior year. So again, I always hit for a high average. I had a lot of hits in high school. Not a lot of hits, but I used to get the 2 strikes a lot and just put the ball in play and beat it to first. Because I get out of the box fast, and I ran a pretty good home the first time. And in high school, I hit a chopper, beat it out. So I'd always get a couple of cheap hits that way. Again, didn't strike out a lot, put the ball in play. Okay, so that's kind of how I was pretty much throughout my high school career. Let me give you a couple other things. So I ended up going to play for a team called the Ohio Warhawks, where basically I was, I guess, recruited to go play for this team where they brought players from kind of all over the country. It was a really good summer ball team. We ended up playing in all the really big tournaments. We came in second in the WWBA down in Georgia, which is like the biggest tournament in the country. I ended up developing pretty good. And by the time I was a junior and a senior, I was probably, I would say I was probably one of the better players in Massachusetts. I did a couple of showcases. You can go online. If you type my name in the perfect game, they give you your rating and all that stuff. I mean, I was rated pretty high. I know I was ranked in New England and in the Northeast. So I progressed into a pretty good player. And I think a lot of it was, like I said, my tools. I wasn't, if you watch me play, and I go back sometimes now, I have a couple of videos that I watch of me in high school, my actions were not very good. Again, I was a 3-sport player from Massachusetts, so I didn't play a ton of baseball. We don't play a lot of baseball up here. So my actions weren't the greatest. You watch me field, and you'd probably be like, ooh, that's not the prettiest thing. I didn't always make the routine play as much as I probably should have. But what I was good at was making the really tough plays because I was a good athlete. So I could go in the hole and slide and field it and get up and throw the ball 90 miles an hour across the infield and get the guy out. And everyone was like, wow, look at that. But I could very easily mess up a routine play also. So, but I had an arm and a good athlete, and I could throw fast, and I could put the bat on the ball and all that stuff. So did pretty well. Ended up, if you guys haven't seen the channel before, I ended up getting drafted out of high school. I got drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 19th round. I was told, and I know everybody says they're always like, oh yeah, I was told I was going in the first, but I went in the 39th round for some reason. I went in the 19th round, but they told me I was going to go someplace in the 5th round. 4th or 5th round is kind of where I was told when I met with a bunch of scouts, and won the 19th round. But they ended up offering me basically 5th round money, or the signing bonus of what the typical 5th round player got. So I was offered $165,000, which again in 2000 and when did I get drafted? I got drafted in 2003, I think. Yes, the spring of 2003. We're almost to summer. And so I was offered $165,000, which for the 19th round would have been considered really, really high. Like I said, I think it was 5th round money. Ended up turning that down. Interesting story. I think I told them that if they gave me $225,000 that I would have signed. And I don't know if they came back and said, okay, we'll do $225,000. I'm not 100% sure I would have signed. And looking back, that would have been a really not the best decision. Although, who knows, maybe I would have went to LA and been in the big leagues in 3 years and had a really long career. Or maybe not, maybe I would have been released. So I don't know what I would have done, but that's the number that I gave them. They ended up coming back and saying, no, we're not giving you $225,000. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to college. Okay, so again, I was drafted decently high, 19th round, not super high, but was offered much higher money. I think one of the reasons I dropped is because I had a scholarship to Wake Forest. And I think they were just afraid that if they wasted a high pick on me and I went to Wake, that, you know, they just wasted a pick. So that's one of the reasons I think that I dropped. And that happens with a lot of high school guys. So that gives you an idea about my draft. As far as scholarships and offers and all that stuff, I was offered a decent amount of scholarships. To give you a couple of schools that I looked at, or at least that I visited, my first visit, so I took an unofficial visit to University of Virginia. I took an unofficial visit to Georgia Tech. They were actually the team that I thought I was going to sign with, and I didn't sign there because Tyler Green, I don't know if you guys remember Tyler Green, was drafted out of high school, and they thought that he was going to go and he wasn't going to sign at Georgia Tech. He ended up signing at Georgia Tech, and so they ended up taking a lot of the money they were going to give me and gave it to him, and so I didn't have much of a scholarship offer anymore, so I didn't end up going there. Took visits to UNC Chapel Hill and Wake Forest. I ended up obviously going to Wake Forest. I had a visit scheduled to Notre Dame, which I ended up canceling after my Wake visit because I went there. Who else? Those were the schools that I visited, and then I was offered scholarships at a bunch of other schools, Alabama. Wasn't offered at Vanderbilt, but talked to Vanderbilt a little bit. Who else? And then like a bunch of like BC and a bunch of other northern schools and stuff. I'm probably forgetting other schools too. So I had a good amount of offers. My Wake Forest scholarship was like for like 60-something%. So I got a pretty good offer as a position player. I ended up being the only position player or the only other infielder that they recruited that year. So hopefully all this information kind of gives you an idea of what type of player I was. And I always say that I was never like the best player when I was younger. But I was always a good player. I was always one of the top players on the team. And I was probably a little bit better than I probably say I was. Just because I always say like, oh no, I wasn't that great. But, you know, like I said, I got a pretty good scholarship offer. And obviously I got drafted out of high school, so I had to be a half decent player. But I really made a pretty big leap when I went to college. And that was one of the reasons why, I know this isn't in the question, but just to give you a quick thing before I end the video, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to college, because I felt like, okay, I'm a really good athlete and I've got all these tools, but I have to get better at baseball. The only way to get better at baseball is to play more baseball. So I went from playing baseball like 3 months out of the year, and then I went to college and played baseball 12 months out of the year. And that's when I really was able to kind of take the tools and then become a better player. And that's why I ended up getting drafted in the first round instead of the 19th round. So I was able to build on some of the skill set that I already had and become an actual better baseball player, which was obviously really beneficial for me in getting drafted and then moving my way through the minor league. So hopefully that helps you guys get an idea of what type of high school player I was. Put in the comment section below if you have any other questions. Maybe I missed something as far as high school goes that you guys want to know about. I'll answer it there for you. Maybe I'll make another video. Subscribe to the channel, share the video with all your friends, give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Check out the description box below. I've got a bunch of stuff down there for you guys to check out. We've got a deal going on with Plate Crate to get you 50% off your first Plate Crate. We've got a link down there to help support our channel through Patreon. We've got a bunch of other stuff for you guys to check out as well. I appreciate everybody watching. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.